Good Sunday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another show of the top 50 greatest classic adventure modules of all time. It's a mouthful. So I'm your good friend, Chris, and I'm joined in my virtual right, Rick. Rick, say hi to everybody.
Hey, Chris. Hi, folks. How's life treating you these days, Chris?
Tired, very tired.
Yeah, you
I'm,
got a lot going on.
yep, I'm moving out of my house. This is the last night I'm sleeping at my house in New Jersey.
Oh,
It's
wow.
here. There's everything's in boxes. I can't find everything. I'm on my wife's computer. I only have one screen. I can't follow the chat. Everything's great. Everything's great. It's like so we are exhausted, but we were here all weekend, literally doing all the final touches and everything, ready for a long day tomorrow. The actual moving company coming, and then we're already set up in our temporary housing. So we're already living in Pennsylvania. So yes, a lot going on. What's going on in your world?
I'm doing good. Had the D&D group over yesterday, so
Nice.
they are churning their way down through the Temple of Elemental Evil. They just hit the second level, so things get real now. I warn them.
Spicy.
So
Nice.
they start running into trolls, and they just ran into a Hydra. So yeah, I told them now's where it gets real.
Well,
Um,
that was
I played another round of the D&D Trivial Pursuit game,
oh,
which is lots of fun, but I will tell you folks, it's not for the fear, it's not for the timid because some of the questions are for real. There were some layup questions, but there are some very difficult questions in there, even for a geek like me. So you were warned, but definitely fun. Needless to say, I skewed toward the adventure questions and D&D
yeah.
history questions and things of that nature. But yeah, life's treated me good.
Oh, very, very, very cool. So, this is Gen Con week, folks. So,
Mm.
if you're at Gen Con in Indy, come check out Goodman Games at our booth number 109. And then over at Lucas Oil Stadium, what are we not doing? We have the Save X Brawl team tournament. We have the funnel experience. If you've not played a funnel before, or even if you have played a funnel before and you just can't get enough funnels, you can definitely play. There is the Spell Duel tournament, which is just what it sounds like. Bring up a generic ticket. I think Harley's going to be manning the table, and literally you spell duel against another wizard, and then you stand there as long as you live. And then when you die, you can get back in line again if you want. Do it all over again. We also have fifth edition organized play. The second batch of Castle White Rock events are being unveiled, CW03 and CW04. So go check that out. I sadly will not be at Gen Con this year because of this little thing called moving to a different state. And going on. So this is, I'm pretty sure I've counted it out right. This is the fifth Gen Con I have missed since 1987, not counting
Wow.
the pandemic year of 2020. I also didn't go in 2021, but yeah, so not counting 2020, I missed five Gen. This is the fifth Gen Con I'm missing, and I'm really bummed because I have a lot of friends who only go to one Gen Con like every 10 years,
Mhm.
all over the country, and they're all there in an Airbnb.
Ah, of course.
And yeah, they're playing Advanced Civ without me, and I'm very bummed about that. But anyway, real life happens. It happens to all of us. So yeah, so that's what's going on in my world and at Gen Con. So let's get right to it. Let's jump right
Mm.
tonight. We are doing the 20. We're counting down from 25 to 21. And we're gonna jump right into the countdown for tonight because we got a lot of really, really amazing adventures to
It's
talk.
a great lineup
I
tonight.
know it is an amazing lineup. I think they're all going to be amazing
Yeah,
after
we're
tonight.
at that point, right? We said that. We're at that point where we're getting down into the good stuff, and
Good
it
stuff.
shows. I think this is such a good lineup tonight. So,
We are in the top half. So
yeah.
let's unveil what number 25 is. Roll it.
Number 25.
All right.
Oh, what?
Very, very excited to see this one. N1 against the cult of the reptile god. Definitely in my top 10 of adventures. Love this adventure by Douglas Niles. A classic 1982. Just so much better. What's your what is your first thought that comes to your mind when you hear against the cult of the reptile
Uh, First thought, honestly, aside from the fact that it's a personal favorite of mine for sure, is I consider this almost like a sleeper hit. I think it doesn't get the press that some other kind of I don't know, I consider similar sort of profile modules got. For whatever reason, this one you can still say the name to some people and they get that kind of look like, well, I think I know that, maybe I know that. The real grognards know it, but it doesn't seem to have the name recognition of others, and that's a darn shame because I think it's great.
Great.
Super well realized kind of home base, or a place that could become a home base, a well realized village. Um, and I just think of length of play for this because there is really a lot of different adventuring locales all built into this, not very large adventure where you have wilderness adventuring, you have town adventuring, there's NPC interaction, there's a multi-level dungeon. And then you have some very detailed buildings that are broken out that you can explore, and a temple that, has been compromised that you can explore. There's a lot of mileage there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Well, I think of balance. I think of balance, and there's enough village there, like you said, to make it a home base. Very
Mhm,
interesting. There's enough dungeon there to keep you busy with that. They
mhm,
kind of short shaft the wilderness travel a little bit, but you can
mhm,
certainly expand that out a little bit and make it a little bit of a hex crawl. I think
mhm,
without a doubt. And I like that. And I mean, really, it reminds me a lot of Village of Hamlet.
mhm,
However, I know people are going to go start jumping off the cliff when I say this. I actually think the execution is better than the Village.
mhm,
In regard to plot and regard to getting the group from the village to
mhm,
the wilderness crawl to the dungeon and kind of tying it in together and everything. Village of Hamlet's great, but
mhm,
it was basically just kind of like a framework, and then it was like up to the game master to figure out how to get the characters to the moat house and then beyond and everything. This one does a little bit more hand holding, and I really like it. I agree. Definitely a little bit of yeah, sleeper hit might be a little bit, a little injustice to it, but you're right. It's not one that typically flies on radars,
mhm.
um, but it's just amazing, in of itself.
Yeah.
Very compelling NPCs, and a really good badass final encounter. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah, for first to third level characters.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the module provides for a little assistance.
it does, which is
Uh,
great. Which is great because if you're gonna be facing something overpowered, a little bit of assistance is definitely appreciated.
yeah. And I think it's handled well. I think the assistance is done in a way that the characters don't necessarily feel overshadowed. They just feel assisted, which is the way it should be. I mean, I think Douglas Niles is a great author.
Yeah, yeah.
I love his stuff. I love the illustrations in this one. Like I said, like I mentioned, the maps are great. You really have detailed building breakdowns that could be, food for thought for if you're developing buildings elsewhere, because you're given not one but two different ends. You're given kind of floor
Yeah.
plans for plus a temple. So I mean that kind of stuff I always found useful, especially when I was beginning to DM.
Hmm.
Anytime somebody would give me a map of an inn or a temple or a ship or something, that to me was always super helpful. I realize for experienced game masters, we can kind of whip out taverns, I think, off the top of our heads now. But when you're starting as a game master, that kind of layout, you may not know what a medieval tavern kind of looks like. So having those maps, I always like that, having as opposed to just being told it was a tavern and not being given a map or giving a room by room breakdown. I always liked when it was given the Village of Hamlet style and they really gave you the meat.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it was a it was a small village. It was not
Mhm.
huge by any means. It's only like 20 encounter areas or something like that, but well thought out. Like the layout of the town made a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah.
The map of the actual village, made a lot of sense. The dungeon levels were great. It was two dungeon levels, and it was just your classic dungeon crawl.
Mhm.
But I like it. It was kind of set in the swamp, so you kind of had a little bit of a semi-aquatic kind of theme going on there. You had some boats and flooded passages and stuff like that. So it was it. I just think it hit the sweet spot. I mean, it
Mhm.
sweet spot for me. I've run it several times. A great adventure to run for a modern group today with
Yeah.
under edition. Because I think everything's there, and I think it would serve as the way these modern kids play. As I get on my soap, they play a couple sessions and they call that a campaign and everything. I think you could make this a nice little campaign. You flesh out
Yeah.
this part a little bit, and you maybe come up with a couple of events that happen in town or something and everything.
Mhm.
A session or two in town, a session or two of traveling, and a couple of sessions of in the dungeon, exploring the dungeon. And for the modern gamer, I think that's a nice little piece by piece campaign setting there.
Mhm.
And you can expand it and obviously add some different embellishes to it and everything. But yeah, I really like it. It's when I was doing my reread for this one, I that's what really I kind of hung up. It's like, wow, this would be a great one to run through with my kids at the 4-H, where
Mhm.
they obviously never used experience with this, but this would be perfect, I think, for them.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that half of the townsfolk are almost half of they're cultists, and it's
Oh
labeled
yeah.
cultists and everything. So it's cool. So you don't know like what you're getting when you're talking to like the shopkeeper or whatever. It's like, are they a good guy? Are they a bad guy? They're still just a commoner villager. They're not like,
Yeah.
any more powerful, but they're good or evil. So love it. Love the adventure.
Yeah. No, there's definitely like almost a creepiness factor. But like you said, there's so much room for expansion because you could really expand, what is it, the Hool Marshes, or you could expand out the town encounters. And like I said, I think after you quote unquote save the town, I think you could loop back and then, make a residence there in the town because it's small. It's not that big a place. I love the fact that it's very grounded in Greyhawk.
Yeah.
It's not just sort of nominally grounded in Greyhawk, but it's really kind of firmly grounded in that little, I guess it's like southwestern corner of Greyhawk, very close to Saltmarsh, actually, if you look at the map.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, which is a nice. I used to set campaigns occasionally over in that little corner right around this area, so it's a nice little area with varied environments to do a campaign. So if the characters do want to go wandering out of that area, there's mountains and there's this and that. All the food groups are there if they want to go exploring. So I think it's grounded in a nice area of the campaign world. So that's to me a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it would be great. I think it would be a good intro adventure.
I do too. Yeah.
I've run it in the past as a sort of launching adventure, for new characters, and it has that almost like Salt Marsh feel to it. It's got that, to me, a sort of investigative what's going on here, though. Like you said, things quickly come to a head. It's not a Village of Hamlet where you really need to dig and dig and dig and dig. In this one, it definitely the evil comes to the fore a lot quicker. So, which can be good, I think, for beginning players. So, yeah, it's good. It's a good one.
All right. So that was our number 25, and one against the Cult of the Reptile God. We are going to move it right along to number 24. So here you go.
Number 24.
All right. The hits just keep on coming, in my opinion.
They do.
Yeah,
Look
A4.
at that.
So the Slavelords. We were talking about how many more of these Slavelords adventures are going to
Yep.
pop up. And here we go. I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is the best. And
Yep.
this is another great adventure on my list. Yeah. So why don't you give me your thoughts on A4, Rich?
Sure. And I know we've discussed this one, and I think it's both of our favorites out of the four.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say it was always that way, but it definitely raised its stock for me as the years went on, and I have played it several times, and just the more I experienced it, the more fun it became. I guess I have to address the elephant in the room, which is this is one of those your characters have no equipment scenarios, based on a very brutal tournament experience. But I think it's handled really well. It can be a lot of fun, a total change of pace for the right characters. And the beauty of it is being the fourth installment. Now the characters have already gone through various dungeons and all these kind of things, and they've accumulated magic items. And I've run this whole campaign more than once. And for me, to bring this in toward the end, I guess you could call it cruel, but for me, it was great because it was like bringing a layer of challenge toward the end of the campaign. Because normally as characters go through the campaign, they build up all their equipment, and their power level. And here, all of a sudden, you're knocked down to the level of, scrunging against kobolds and giant ants because, you're
Yeah.
picking up sticks and you're running around in loincloths and you're MacGyvering your way through the dungeon. And it's such a change of pace, for the characters and for the players that I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it works great as a tournament adventure. I mean, nothing like challenging the players, not the characters, the players and their ingenuity and how to figure things out. I love the warnings in the beginning of the in the introduction saying it's like, oh, it's like your players are gonna beg for mercy and ask for every break known to man, and it's like ignore them, don't cave in. And it's like, and I like that, but there are certainly things seeded in the dungeon to help you out. I mean,
Oh yeah.
there's flint and steel, but they're in different encounter areas. There are some sources of fire. There are fire beetles where you can harvest their butt glands and then use their butts to as a light source. And so I mean, I think it's definitely done well. Definitely, it's the perfect one shot, to kind of just spring on your players. I mean, everybody really didn't like the ham-fisted you get captured at the end of A3, but obviously you had to have that in order to have the beginning of A4. But you can hand wave that whole part and just start them, fresh and say, hey, we're getting together, we're gonna game this weekend, and not tell the folks what they're gonna do, and then just spring it on them that you've captured, you have no equipment, try and get out.
Yeah.
So many love the aspects of this adventure and everything. There's so much good to it. And I agree, back in the day, back in the 80s when I was just a kid in school running these adventures, I think A1 was my favorite because it was very straightforward.
Yep.
And
Same.
this was daunting.
Same.
Run this was the starting off with no equipment was daunting. And then also the big battle royale at the end was daunting also, the big showdown with the high level Slavelords, which was just scary combat to think of trying to run that. But I think over time it first became like a challenge to be like, oh, I can game master this and everything. And then like a good wine, like a fine wine, it is aged well, and now it is, I love it. It is just almost, in my opinion, like the perfect adventure. I mean, it's got new monsters, it's got some cool little traps, environmental things to overcome, a dungeon, it's got some closure at the end where you get to beat up the Slavelords if you've gone through the entire campaign arc. Oh, just so much there. And the new monsters,
Yeah.
great. I mean, like cave fishers, sandlings, magmen. I mean, a lot of things. Myconids, and magmen became staples of the later editions. They're in the regular rule books and all that. So love it.
Yeah, great. You raise a really good point. Great new monsters. Just like you said, the Myconids really took on a life of their own, and I've always had a soft spot for the cave fishers. So I think they're both great.
Yeah.
And that final encounter, I always picture it in my mind as very James Bond because it's sort of like the island is blowing up and the volcano is spitting out lava, and the players are running out of there and the bad guys are there, and it's kind of like it's like watching You Only Live Twice. It's kind of like the whole place is going up.
I'm a Bond fan, and I never made that connection before, and I'm like, I totally get that. I totally get it.
Like for me, I'm a James Bond fan, and for me, like the whole ending of this to me is like, you only live twice. But I think that final fight with the Slavelords, that's because I DM'd this the first time when I was young, I was probably like, I don't know, 16 or something. And I think that was the first time I ever wrote down round by round tactics.
Yeah.
Because for all the different Slavelords and their spells and everything, like I wrote out, all right, here's what they're all going to do up to about 5 or 6 rounds out.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that really opened my eyes from a design standpoint of how you could handle a very, very complicated encounter and how you break it down and kind of make it easy for a game master to run by kind of give them a script. I mean, you hear about it in football all the time where they script the first 25 plays or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's like, yeah, give them a recipe to kind of follow,
Yeah.
without a doubt. One of my favorite things in the adventure is actually the backdrop of the earthquake and the tremor,
Mhm.
and how the game master could use that to basically have a ticking clock, basically,
Mhm.
to not, oh yeah, you can take a rest if you want to, but and then there's another earth tremor, and it's like maybe we shouldn't take a rest, maybe we should keep pushing on.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. I think we've talked about before. It's like you can take a good adventure and add a clock to it, and now it's a great
Mhm.
adventure, or add
Oh
some
yeah.
some way that you got to do something in a certain amount of time, or else, and then
Yeah.
just bring those stakes up. Don't let them dilly dally or anything. And I love that part of it. It was just
Oh yeah.
I
To me,
almost
that raises you can go back and look at almost every published adventure I've written, anything that I authored myself, and there's always a ticking clock in
yeah
there of some type, even if the players aren't even aware of it, there's always some kind of schedule, or because I'm a huge fan of that. I'm
yeah
a big believer
yeah.
in that.
I almost wish they gave us a little bit more for the
Hmm.
neophyte game master to kind of like maybe even like here's some read aloud text for when the tremor happens, and
Yeah.
or the next tremor, or something of a way to slowly scale the tremors up so that you can, without
Hmm.
telling them that they're running out of time, but kind of really give that feeling like if the first tremor is it's really only like a 1.0, but the next one's like a 2.0, and the next one's like a 3.0, and it's really kind of like
Yeah.
almost counting up that it's like if it gets to 10,
Hmm.
world's gonna end kind of deal. So love that part of the adventure. Really, really got a kick out of that. So any final thoughts on A4 into the Dungeons of the Slave Lords?
No, I think I think, yeah, I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
But
So
just, yeah,
we
a great capstone on a good campaign.
yeah. So if you want to go check out our Talking TSR episode on this adventure, we talked about it for an entire hour. Uh, yeah, so we check that out. So we are going to move along to number 23 right next.
Number 23.
All right. So this is a
Okay.
little bit of a surprising. I don't know if it's surprising or not, but yeah, number 23, Horror on the Orient Express, Call of Cthulhu, originally published in 1991. But I'm kind of thinking the reason this is probably on the list is it's republished in 2014 as a mega box set on Kickstarter, of which I owned that copy. I was not familiar with it back in the 90s. And this is a huge box,
Oh yeah.
mega adventure. And the way that Chaosium presented this product was just amazing with that 2014. I mean, they took a good slash great adventure, and
Mhm.
it added all these amazing bits and pieces and cling, and made it a wonderful experience. I mean, I've not played Call of Cthulhu in a while, but when this box set came down, I actually missed the Kickstarter. I found out about it afterwards, but I tracked myself down a Kickstarter copy of it and overpaid.
Mhm.
And it's a masterclass in how to put together a just huge fat box of gaming love. So, uh, I think, were you familiar with the 91 version?
What's that?
Were you familiar with the 1991 version, or
I
no? He does.
I own the 1991 version.
Look at that. And was that a box or just a book? It was a box.
The box set.
The box, but wow, it's about half the size of the.
Yeah, it's funny too because back in Dragon 185, which was in 1992, Rick Swan reviewed it because he was reviewing game products kind of regularly in the Dragon, and he had a line in the review which I remember where he said like his only downside to the product. He loved the product, but he basically said the one downside was it comes in a flimsy one piece box. He said virtually guaranteed to disintegrate, and that once you get this stuff out, you have to pry to get it back in.
Yeah,
And I can verify that because this thing I won't even take it. It's so chock full and thick Like they allowed about a millimeter space, because there's so many goodies packed into this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wonderful campaign. I've never run it. I would love to run it. There's no doubt in my mind it'd be a challenge, I think, for a keeper to run this. You got to have your act together. Like any long Call of Cthulhu campaign, I think you have to have your act together. But just the amount of locales and the amount of detail in this product, I like to say, like, certain RPG books or adventures, the love shows, and you said something toward the end, and it shows in this, and you can tell, like, sometimes you get those books and you can see the work and you can see the detail and you can see that whoever was writing this loved what they were doing.
Yeah.
And there aren't many of those books that really scream that. One that comes to mind that's more of a supplement, like, for instance, I always felt like the original Delta Green book was one of those, that it was just
Yeah.
such a masterclass source book, one of the best, I think, supplements ever written, that the love shows. Well, in this, the amount of historical detail, you get about the train service and the train cars, and you get a cardboard map of all the cars and all this stuff. And there's one booklet I remember called Strangers on the Train, which is just a big fat booklet full of NPCs.
And it's not NPCs that are important to the plot. It's
No.
literally folks that are just on the train.
Yeah, just like people who might be victims or getting in the way, but they're,
Yep.
fodder for a keeper to really get their hands on it and bring to life, and have puttering around this train and talking to the characters while they're hunting vampires or whatever they're doing.
Yep.
And it's just, I love it. I
Yeah.
love the whole deal. It's just a big grand package. The adventure just goes from place to place, and you get these just all kinds of visuals, these horror visuals where it's like almost like a series of cascading shocks that lead up until this just otherworldly finale. And then the redone version, which I sadly don't own, they did add other, they've since added, and people I think are debating whether it really helps it or not, but I think it's really cool that they added some, like, there's a Dreamlands element.
Yep.
And there's even, I think it even caps with a modern day, like, kind of post log or whatever, and all this kind of stuff,
There's a Cthulhu event set in the Dark Ages, and it's all part of the plot and everything.
Yeah.
There's a Gaslight version, and there's a modern day kind of an epilogue
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, but yeah, and that is just, and again, even that 2014, I think you hit it perfectly. Back in 1991, you could tell somebody really put love and attention into it. But in 2014, they did the same thing, and it was like, it's kind of like a re-envisioning. It's like, how do we make it even better? And I'll tell you, it's the box might be twice as big and it might be twice as thick, but you cannot get everything back in there again. And it does not fit all the way. It is so jam packed with everything, and the handouts and everything. Yes, I at first I was disappointed with the Strangers on the Train book, because I flip open, I'm like, where's the vampire? Where's all these PCs we're talking about? And I'm like, oh, this book is not that. It's literally just people on the train that you could use as PCs, because, spoiler alert, you're probably going to die. So you could fold some of these NPCs into PCs, or you could, like you said, you could just have them get in the way. You could have a firefight break out, and have, like, one of the NPCs that maybe you had lunch with earlier that day is in the middle of it. It's like, it's just absolutely brilliant what they did, and just to make it, like you said, I've obviously never, I've played some Cthulhu back in the day. I cannot even tell you the last time I played Call of Cthulhu. Honestly, it was probably in the 90s time I played Call of Cthulhu, but it's always had a soft spot. I mean, I tracked down this box set because it looks so impressive. Because I was just so like, this is something I have to have on my shelf, because it's just so, it's amazing. All the different bits in there, the adventure books, like you said, the detail on the train, the history of all the different stops, how the train functions, all the employees on the train, like all the different, they give you the menu, and it's like, it is just, it is so much so much.
I defy anybody, even if they're not into the horror thing, to open this box and like any game master to open this box and paw through the contents and
Yeah,
not get a smile on their face.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the handouts are
uh,
to me
yeah,
beyond, I know we have a graphic of the handouts, and I couldn't even find a good picture online, so I literally spread out the contents of mine and took a picture. That's what you'll see, folks,
yeah.
because there are passports that actually
Or-
have an embossed seal, like an embossed stamp on them, which I think is awesome. There are, like I said, cardboard train cards that you can cut out, and you can even rearrange the train cards,
Yeah,
if you wanted to put them in a different order. The kind of MacGuffin that you're chasing through this whole thing is this object called the Sedefkar simulacrum, and you get the cardboard pieces of the arms and legs and the head, and because you're collecting this thing kind of country by country, so you get the pieces of that thing that you can kind of hand to the players as they go along. There are little pieces of a scroll, and they tell you, I remember in the instructions, that roll them up around a pencil and kind of make little scrolls out of them and age them, and do that kind of. I never cut mine out. They're still sitting there pristine, because like I said, I've never played this, but they tell you how to age them and present them to your players, and I think it's just great. There's a poster map in there. There's luggage stickers in there. It's
yeah,
insane, the cool stuff that's in there. It's just like I said, somebody had fun with this. They didn't have to put luggage stickers in there. They serve no purpose for the plot or no purpose as clues. They're just like things to throw in for the game master to have a little fun and stick on something. But I think it's great.
and makes the perfect crowdfunding product because it's like you can take something that is great and then just through crowdfunding and raising all the money and
Oh
everything,
yeah,
make it better and better and better
yeah,
and better. Like you said, make those handouts even better. Make
yeah,
those,
yeah.
make pieces even better. Make the trading cards even better. And that's the beauty of something like that.
Hmm.
And if I recall, they Chaosium did a Horror on the Orient Express board game
Yes.
earlier this year. I think it was.
Yeah, it finished not terribly long ago.
Yeah, I think it was in the
Um,
spring. I think,
yeah,
and miniatures and basically taking the classic adventure and distilling it down into a board game.
yeah,
And again, it was one of those things where if I didn't know I was moving very soon, I the trigger on that like you wouldn't believe. Because
yeah,
I would actually get that to the table. So that might be another one where after the fact I have to track down.
yeah.
I'm finding out that this show that we're doing this year is actually costing me a lot of money. Because I've got this wish list of things that I need
Mhm.
to get, and I'm desperately holding off until I get into my new digs
Yeah,
before I start buying these things because I just don't want to move them. I'm like, tired of moving things, and I have a whole storage unit. Folks, I have a 10-foot by 10-foot storage unit that has for game collection in it because no movers touching it. No movers touching it.
which
And
is the way it should be.
it is. But damn, books are heavy, especially hardcover books.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I have literally hundreds of them. But anyway,
That's
I
that's how you know you're a lover of this kind of stuff, is when you move, when your books and game products,
yeah,
constitute more box weight than anything else.
then you're perfect. Yeah,
With just boxes of board games, take
yeah, no problem.
take up all that kind of thing. And you're right. This is a Kickstarter's dream in a way, these because even more so than D&D, the nature of Call of Cthulhu, the
Yeah,
investigative nature, the clue nature, I felt the game has always lent itself to physical props, to
yes,
little
yeah,
pieces of paper and parchment and things you can put on the table and let your players ponder over or handle, old leather books, any like. I was always big whenever I do Call of Cthulhu, was trying to come up with some kind of old book or prop or something. And so taking this kind of these elements and then potentially even bumping them up in a Kickstarter would be awesome.
yeah. I agree. You really need you just try down a copy. You really should. Because I mean, you'll love it even more. I think you'll rediscover your love
Yeah.
this of this adventure. So that's it. So number 23. Really excited to see another
Yeah,
Cthulhu adventure on the list. Do we have more in us? We don't know. And in the
could be.
back in the 20s, which is pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, definitely good. So I think we're going to move along to our next entry, which is going to be number 22.
Number 22.
I'm going to admit, this is a little bit of a surprise. GDQ 1 through 7, Queen of the Spiders. The reason why I'm going to call this as a very surprise coming in on our number 22, this was the number one adventure in the Dungeon Magazine list of 20 years ago. Now, also the caveat is, like I said, we allowed all of the adventures to be, nominated in this list. So clearly they did not pick, G1, G2, G3 or D3 or anything. It was like an all or nothing thing. So
Yeah.
this was really kind of a cop out to kind of put 7 modules on a list that was only 30 long, kind of. But so keep that in mind. But I was a little bit surprised. Well, maybe more than a little bit surprised at how low this whole 1 through 7 compilation showed up on our list. What do you think, Greg?
No, I agree. I mean, maybe the way people viewed what we were asking them and how they were asking them to vote, they tried to narrow down more on singular adventures. And like you said, there's so many incarnations of this series that we could very well see like a G1 to 3 or a D1 to 3 or some pieces of this pop up later. I have no doubt, actually. I feel like we will. So yeah, I am also surprised it's as low as it is, because just as a whole campaign kind of experience, not only was it novel for its time, but it's the one that everyone thinks of. This is the grand classic campaign. You ask people about linked adventures and a long campaign that's classic D&D. This is what comes to mind to me unabashedly. I am huge, as you know, I am a huge fan of this. I think different elements sing to different levels, and some are better environments and some are better adventures. But as a whole experience, and I have run players through this, it's just a fantastic grand campaign with so many varied environments, where you're going to, frost giants in a howling chasm full of, snow and ice, and then you're underground and you're, carting stuff over a lava river, and then you're descending into the Underdark, and you're, going into this weird shrine of the Koatoa, and then you're seeing a Drow city, and all this it's just thing after thing after thing of these environments, that just to me is so cool. These really environments that you could tell were born out of the fantasy literature, that the authors of the day recalled. So it's virtually, to me, unequaled. Now I think obviously there's a lot of debate about the capstone adventure. People love or hate Q1. As if you're looking at the whole, I can't look at the whole 7 without thinking of Q1 sort of sticking out a little bit in my mind as a sore thumb, maybe, or something. But yeah, it's everybody should DM this or play this.
Yeah, I totally agree. A little disappointed in the compilation version, especially because like A1 through 4, when that got the compilation treatment, they actually added quite a bit of extra content in A1 through 4, with entire adventures, setups, and NPCs and everything. This one, not so much. There was some front-loaded stuff a little bit, where there was backstory, but once you kind of got into the main encounter and main adventures, if you will, the 1 through 7, very little wandering away from basically a straight reprint. There was a couple little things here and there. I think they named a lot of the NPCs, which a lot of times you were just supposed to kill the NPCs anyway, so I'm not sure naming them was a really big deal. But I do remember a prologue encounter, which was very interesting, and I ran it. I had a blast with it, where it's basically the revenge of the Slavelord, where the game master can pick any of the Slavelords that survived, assuming that you went through. Allegedly, you were supposed to go through Village of Hamlet and Temple of Uncle Evil, and then you were supposed to go through the Slavelords, and then you were supposed to go through this, which is crazy if you think about it. That's three mega adventures in a row, and that's kind of how you were supposed to do it. But that's the way we did it. So, but but you were supposed to take one of the slave lords that survived, and even if they all got wiped out, you were supposed to come up with some story that got resurrected and everything. Add a few levels to them, and then it basically gets all these basically bad guys assembled, and then a classic showdown in the when the characters are relaxing in an inn, and basically it's a dark and stormy night. The door opens up, and the slave lord is there, and then the fight happens. Like the windows are being broken in, and it's like, and again, detailed description on like how the fight is supposed to go and all that. It's fascinating. I had a blast with it. I remember I designed the inn a battle map for the inn room and everything, and it was a knock 'em down, drag 'em out fight. I mean, it was great. It was a great way to kick off the thing. I guess I wanted more of that. I wanted more Underdark encounters. I wanted a stone giant and a storm giant adventure. I'm like, how cool would that have been? Like, to get like 2 whole extra adventures and actually have all the iconic giants, basically, basically represented. I mean, that would have been pretty amazing, I think. And cloud giants too. Can't forget the cloud giants. Love to see those guys in there too. So, but yeah, I guess that was a little ambitious, and I guess it just really probably turned out to a word count kind of thing, and we're all pretty much standard 128 pages with a map booklet and all that. But yeah, I'll echo everything you say about variable environments, great encounters, just a great framework for a stick campaign.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. This particular version, I recall the intro being different.
Yep.
And after that, really not so much. I owned this version. I also owned the kind of Slavelords compilation. And I remember really liking what they had done with the Slavelords, where they added that sort of introduction party and that whole really a lot of NPC action, and I felt like some thought was really put into that, and I don't feel like this one got quite that attention, and like certainly not the in-between encounters. So yeah, it would have been nice if there would have been just some more meat inserted just to kind of smooth the gears a little bit in between some of these things. But yeah, it's still, hey, it's got all the 4 in the one package though. So for people who can track down the originals, this has seen so many, like I said, so many versions that it's almost like you have to ask people what version they have,
Yeah.
Do they have the Against the Giants version, or they even did that one where they had D1 and D2 in one book, kind of, which I always felt was like weird, and they kind of left D3 out of it, so all these kind of incarnations that this went through. But that tells you how classic this is as a whole, that the fact that whenever I see an adventure come back edition after edition, version after version, it's just kind of one of these zombie campaigns that will not die and keeps being remarketed in some way, that tells you how classic and enduring it is. So
exactly, agreed 100%. And again, we've seen a couple of the 1 through 7 have already showed up on this list. Several of them actually. It will be very curious to see if any more show up on this list. I'm guessing they will. That would be my guess. And that'll make for interesting conversation and interesting conversation. And if I wasn't in the middle of a booth and I was not going crazy this week, I probably would have went back and knocked off a list of like which ones had already appeared on our list, and which ones hadn't. I think D2 did. I
feel like
D3 did. I think
I did D3. I know. Well, I know Shrine of the Koatoa D2 definitely showed up.
Yeah.
I feel like we did G1, the Hall of the Fire Giant, right? Didn't that? Or I mean the
I know we did D2.
Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, didn't that? No.
I honestly cannot remember.
Now you see, now I'm going to have to go back and look.
Yeah,
I feel like we've gotten at least 3 pieces of this have popped up.
Yeah, if I had my computer, I would have done that. But I just like I said, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah. Yes. I know D2 definitely came up because I think you and I were a little disappointed on where it landed.
I guess we were happy it was on the list, but disappointed it was that low. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we'll see. We'll stay tuned. I'll come better prepared next time.
All right.
Next time one of these pops up, we'll have a little summary of like where the other ones have all.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and look next time and see where where it shakes out, because there's still pieces missing of this. That's that much I know. So
maybe some surprises. maybe some surprises. All right, we have one more to reveal for tonight, so we are going to get right to it, to number 21. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Number 21.
All right.
All right.
B1, In Search of the Unknown. Very conflicted about this one, so yeah, I'll have you go get started on this one first. This is a classic
Okay.
from 1978. Rick, what do you have on B1?
I have a great big personal soft spot for this one. Now, I do feel the adventure you start with, is kind of bred into you a little bit. So I started with B1 and not B2. So
Okay.
no
That was
doubt
in
that,
your box set? That was in your
yeah,
box. Oh,
yeah. I started with the Red Dragon box set and it had B1 in it at that time. So basically, the first adventure I was ever run through as a player was this adventure.
okay.
Or actually, no, I take that back. I meant to say the first one I ever DM'd was this adventure. My first adventure as a player, God help me, was the Tomb of Horrors, if you can believe that. But the first one I actually DM'd was this adventure. So it's so firmly embedded in my nostalgia. Um, if it wasn't for the whole fill in the monster thing, which we'll discuss, I'm sure, to me, this would almost be a perfect intro module. In many ways, and I know I'm going to draw heat for this, I like it better than B2. B2, I always had some problems with the ecology and certain elements of it. This, to me, it's a great classic dungeon. All the kind of sample rooms for the DM are there. There's lots of great examples of how to handle traps and different types of rooms. And lastly, I always felt B1 spoke so strongly to the exploratory theme that was in vogue at this time, that we've gotten sort of away from that to some extent with D&D. But at the time when this came out, it wasn't always about plot or always about necessarily stopping the bad guys or getting the MacGuffins. Sometimes it's just about rooting around a cool place and finding what you found. And that is exemplified in this module because there's so many like interesting little fun rooms with random tables and just things that the DM can play around with and have fun. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. And so, full disclaimer, not one of my favorite adventures at all. I've come to appreciate it, or the school Chris had issues with it, and I'll get to that. But yeah, what you said. So my first experience of an adventure was B2. That's what came out. I was all day box set, so that's where B2 was in. So that was my very first one, and that was the very first one I adventured in. I'm guessing it was the very first one I game mastered. I'm not even sure. It must have been the first one that I game mastered. I can't imagine game mastering something different. So I have that pull where I always thought that B2 was a stronger adventure than B1. And for that course. And I remember when I got B1 and I plunked down my hard earned $5.50, whatever it was back in the day. And I got that module home and I ripped that shrink wrap off because they were shrink wrap back in the day. And same thing, I discovered all that, whoa, it's not filled in. And I remember being so disappointed with that and really feeling cheated that I something quite frankly wasn't complete. And I will tell you a true story. I don't as I attest to a 10-foot by 10-foot storage unit with all these books that I have from back in the day, from the 70s now, and board games. I don't get rid of anything. And there was a time back in the 80s, I got rid of my copy of I
sacrilege.
saw a friend who was getting into the game, and he wanted an adventure, and he's like, "Do you have one that you could give me?" He wanted it for real, and I think I traded it for him for I don't know what baseball cards or something. I forget what Nerf football or something. I don't know what I got, but anyway, I gave it away, and then years later, I tracked down another copy of it. And if you recall, there was a monocolor copy and the brown copy. So then I had to track down both copies. So then I had to, pay more money for something I didn't like and still didn't like. But I will admit that I have more of an appreciation for it after doing the 5e conversion back for Into the Borderlands OAR #1. I got an opportunity to basically stock the dungeon. And, you know, 50-year-old, you know, Chris DM enjoyed the hell out of that.
Oh
And again,
yeah.
a great map and just what you said, interesting rooms, and
Yeah.
it was fun
Yeah.
creating a story around those things and those weird rooms, the room of pools and the squiggly shaped corridors.
I love the, can I say how much I love that room of pools? How
I
much fun I have had with that over the years.
so I used that as a trivia question during overtime during
Oh,
cap.
nice.
Use that. How many pools are in the room of pools, Rick? How many pools?
All right, wait a second.
Oh no, don't name them. Don't name them.
Oh no, you just want a number, right?
I want a number. How many pools?
I'm gonna say 16.
14.
Ah,
You were close. You were
I was
close.
thinking 15 or 16, but yeah, I didn't think 14.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and M. Fergus 42 said the modules were 550 at Tiny Tots in
yes,
Middlesex, New
and
Jersey
that's
back in the
where I.
day. And that sounds right because I bought mine at KB Toy and Hobby and it was like $5 or $6. So that
That,
sounds right.
yep. I know. M for 42 there because we used to both shop at Tiny Tots in Central. I got many of my adventures from, and my lead figures that were actually lead. So there, they had a whole big, huge.
Remember, yeah, back when Grenadier would give you those boxes full of, 12 lead figures or whatever that
Yes.
it would
Yeah.
never sell you today. But yeah, I totally agree. I think if somebody were to redo this module now and stock it with all, and kind of redo it out and and obviously Goodman's done that. So there you have it, folks. If you want the version of it, we offer it, because by doing that and putting more of a that's the element it needed, it needed like a
Yeah. To
firm
be
bad
finished.
guy.
To be finished. To be like a complete adventure.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one thing it was missing. It's the one thing it was
Yeah.
was
No,
mom.
the point, you're right. I'm laughing because I'm like, the more I'm hearing us talk about it, like I can't help it, I think it was just by virtue of I love the rooms and there
Yeah.
was something, and again, I can see other people not agreeing here, but there was something back in the day about Mike Carr's writing style that was
Yeah.
almost comforting, for lack of a better word. That's the best way I can describe it. For me as the new DM, I really felt like this module took me by the hand a little bit, even if it made me do the work of stocking, the monsters. They gave me the list of monsters. And again, looking back on it now, it looks terribly random because they're
Oh
just
yeah.
telling you, here's some berserkers, here's some troglodytes, throw them
Yeah.
in there. It makes no sense. Just throw them in here. Here's some troglodytes here, goblins here. But back in the day, it all worked out for me. It made sense. So
Yeah.
a classic.
So we are up against it, and we do actually have a show coming on right after us. So we are going to wrap up this.
Yes.
Folks, thank you, Rick. Tell them what you got to tell them.
Yeah, so folks, what a quick hour this was talking about these classics. We're delighted you could join us. Our next show is coming to you Sunday, August 25th at 8 p.m. And we're going to go then 20 on down. So
Yeah.
talk about getting to the good stuff. As always, if you like what you saw, give us a follow, give us a like. If you have not subscribed to the Goodman Games channel on YouTube yet, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe. Do us a favor because we love it. And as always, keep those comments coming both during the show and later on YouTube because we read every one of them.
Yeah, definitely so. So I am going to go collapse in a corner somewhere, boxes, and get ready for a big move. And the next time that we do our show, I will be in completely different digs, but not my real digs. It's my temporary digs for a few months. So
Okay.
maybe by our last show, I'll be in.
Maybe you'll be comfortable. You'll be in the new lair, the new Doyle lair.
Hopefully.
All right. I hope so.
Anyway, everybody, enjoy your summer. If you're going out to Gen Con, please have safe travels.
Have fun, folks.
At the convention, check us out, our booth and everything, and all the awesome offerings that we have. And by all means, raise an adult beverage for me because I'm not there, so I'm going to be missing it. It's going to be hard to not be at Gen Con this year, but yeah, I'll be. It'll just make next year even better. So that's what I keep telling myself. So everybody have a great night, and we'll see you guys in a month.
Good night.